Hi, everybody. Today, I will be talking with you. I am lucky I have a microphone. You can ask your questions in chat. You can, basically, let's use chat for our communication. So, few words about me. I'm working 15 years in IT. I started as a .NET developer quite some time ago. And after that, I moved to project management. And that clicked with me. I really like it. I really like working with people. I really like building together with people some complex things. And that's something that drives me every day. I am passionate to discuss with others. I am passionate to share with others what we learn, to listen to others. So all of these, even what we are doing now, is part of what I really like and what really drives me. And we will be talking about different methodologies and so on. They usually in a sphere, in discussion between professionals, such discussions may lead to heated debates, who likes what. I always think about myself as a person that I can be promoter and I can be detractor, skeptic about each of those things that I describe you. There is no one universal silver bullet in what we will be discussing today. Good. Let's go to agenda. So we will talk what is project overall. So since you are here with diverse backgrounds, to make sure that we have a shared understanding of this project. Then what is methodology? Since we will be discussing methodologies. Then we will discuss different methodologies. Waterfall, agile, if you'll have time, we'll also discuss third way. You can ask your questions as we go. After each major section, I will stop and we will answer some of those questions. If there will be a lot of questions, sorry, we will not be able to answer all of them, but at least we will answer some of them. So feel free to ask your questions in chat. Okay, let's start from an old time. So humans were doing projects even before inventing writing. Like Stonehenge was built by, I don't know whether you know it, but Stonehenge was built by people who didn't have writing. And even so, they managed to build Stonehenge. So projects are very ancient thing. You can see Romans building in ancient times their famous roads. You can see through Industrial Revolution and to modern times. And here, to wake you up a bit, I have a story. That story goes around internet. Please react to it. Please accept it as more as a funny story or funny interpretation than absolute truth. And that just, again, to wake you up. So here on the right, you can see space shuttle launch. And space shuttle has these solid fuel boosters, two white rockets on the sides. Engineers, when they were designing those boosters, they wanted to make them bigger, a bit bigger than they are, but they couldn't. Why? Because boosters are delivered by railroads. And those railroads in US, they pass through some tunnels in mountains. So size of the tunnel dictated the size of the booster. Why tunnel has this size? Because of train track. So tunnel is a train track plus a bit of space around it. Okay, why train tracks have this size? And in US, it's very weird number in US measurement. It's, if I remember correctly, it's 8 feet. Okay, give me a sec. It's 4 feet something. It's like, yes, it's 4 feet, 8.5 inches. Why? Why so weird number? Because people who were building first railroads, they were coming from Britain, from Great Britain, where first railroads were invented, and they were building their railroad on the same size as they had tracks in their regular roads. You know, like ruts or tracks in the road. So as there was the standard size of the British road, same way they did a standard size of the railway. Why did they do this size? Why did they have this specific size of tracks in their regular road? You know, just cars go on and on and on, and they make tracks in the road, in the paved road. So why that size was for regular road? because Great Britain has some ancient roads from actually Roman times, and that was the size of tracks in Roman roads. And if you wanted to use those roads, your carts had to have the same size of your wheels, distance between wheels, so you will not break your wheels on that old Roman road. So basically, that size comes that 4 feet, 8 inches, 8.5 inches comes from Roman times. Why Romans had this size? Because they were putting in their carts and in their chariots, they were putting 2 horses. So you have 2 horses side by side. Together, they are these 4 feet, 8.5 inches. That's what Romans accepted as a standard size for their one-way road. So now going back, the size of a rocket nowadays is dictated by size of 2 behinds of Roman horses. That's a bit about interdependence of our world and how one thing impacts another things. That's just funny story to share with you and hopefully to wake you up. Let's go further. So what is project? I would love to hear from you. Please use chat to write what is project in your opinion. Okay, planned action is determined time to start and end. It's very good. Everything that needs to be done. Some task I'm working on, a plan, a task. Okay, there is more than one definition of what is project. I'll offer you one from PMI, from Project Management Institute, that clicks with my experience. Okay, we also have planned activity to build to complete some task. Yeah, it's pretty close. So pretty close to what I want to offer you. So, oops, one moment. So the definition that I want to offer you is the following. Project is some temporary undertaking that we do to create unique product, service, or result. Unique. So if you will look on the bottom, if we want to design a factory, that's a project. If we have a factory and that factory produces 1 car every hour, that 1 car is not a project, it's just a product. If we want to improve a factory, that's again a project, since it is unique thing to produce unique result. So projects when we produce something unique, that's one thing. Now, topic of this of today event is methodology. So what is methodology? So project management methodology is a set of procedures, steps, rules that we have in order to make a project. So project is to make something unique, and methodology is how do we achieve project goals? How do we guide our project? So this is methodology. Again, there are other definitions, there are other perceptions. That's perfectly fine. It's not a unit of measurement. It's okay to have different definitions. Okay, today we will focus on 2 groups of project methodologies, so-called waterfall methodologies and so-called agile methodologies. What's that? We will discuss during the event. So first, waterfall methodologies. So waterfall methodologies, they started first of all from Industrial Revolution, when people needed to organize these complex factories and so on. And we can argue that they started even before. You can imagine when you, for example, during Second World War, needed to produce an airplane for war efforts. So you did this step by step. You designed that airplane, you designed manufacturing process, you then built a factory, to deliver those airplanes. Then you got an actual airplanes out. So it was very step-by-step process. You can imagine those conveyor belts from Ford and so on when you think about waterfall. And why is it called waterfall? It's called waterfall because one step of a project, one phase of a project goes after another sequentially, like waterfall. They just fall one into another. So very high level, typical steps for waterfall project are: we gather all the requirements, everything that needs to be done. Then we seed and design. Okay, how will we deliver those requirements? How will we produce, how do we design that plane? How do we, if we have plane, how do we design a factory to deliver that plane? So we design per our requirements. Then we go and implement. So we need design to be done. Design is fully done. It feeds into implementation, and implementation is where we go and build a factory. Then verification, some commission comes and checks, what did we do? Or apartment building, or fueling station, or actual software products. There is a verification stage when we check if delivered result is what was expected. And then maintenance. We support what was delivered. It's true for factory, it's true for software product. It's deployed somewhere. We need to make sure it will be up and running. So one more time, we have defined set of stages that feed one into the next, second into third, and so on. Now I would love to talk about pros and cons. So what do you think? What are pros? What are advantages of making projects in this way? Please use chat. Focus on each step. Easier to manage. Yeah. Very good points. Any other ideas, guys? Sustainability, con. Okay, we'll reach to cons later. Cannot get back to go. Finish dependency for next steps. Yes. Lower budget risk. It's an interesting point. Yes. Okay. And what are cons? Clear hierarchy of execution. What are cons in your opinion? But please write cons or disadvantage dash and what you want to write. So we will know that it's cons, not pros. Yeah. What are cons? What are disadvantages of waterfall? Okay. Cons, dependency on previous step. Yes, very good. The result can be shown at the end at a very late stage. Yes. Yes, it results visible only in the end. Not adaptable. Yes. Delay testing after completion. Mostly. Yes. Time period is longer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, time period is an arguable thing, but let's get to it. So, pros and cons. So and you were very spot on. Those things that are in the chat are very good and very close to what I expected you will write there. So speaking about pros, since we do a very good job, at least we should do very good job on the previous step, like for example on requirements step, we then potentially save cost downstream. So if we captured all requirements, we go and then we do design once, saves cost. The important thing is if we didn't capture all the requirements, then we will have very costly and sometimes almost impossible redesigns later. When I was a developer, we designed a system for our customer, for our client. Client needed to synchronize data. between two big enterprise solutions. So what happens in one is reflected in another one almost instantly. We designed it, we implemented it. And then customer came and said, yeah, no, by the way, that solution should be installed not on one server, but on multiple servers that will be working in parallel. And our solution was whatsoever absolutely not designed that there are multiple instances of the same system working in parallel, processing updates in parallel. You can have that one event went to server 1 and another event about the same thing went to server 2, and they in parallel try to modify the same stuff. Oh my gosh, nobody thought about that. The fact that that requirement was missed on requirement stage costed a lot of rework downstream. So if we capture everything, we save. If we miss, and that's not only about requirements. If we implement it bad, it will be hard to maintain. If you implement it bad, it will not pass verification. We will get back to implementation. So misses in previous steps are very costly. So if we do this correctly, there are benefits. If we do miss things, there are significant penalties, significant downsides. For example, one of the good benefits is that, as we said, there is a significant cost saving in each next step. Other points that were very good in chat, that we get result very late. So customer will see result here after verification, after the fourth step. So we need to go through all of those, which are potentially very long, until we will get that nice result. So that's very important point that worked against waterfall projects, and we will discuss that. Okay, so where to use waterfall? One thing where definitely, you ask ourselves, you ask yourself, is this situation good to use waterfall? So one of the things to look at is the fact that requirements can be actually defined and determined. You come to your client, and client can tell you, yes, we know what we need to implement, or you can sit with them, brainstorm with them, but in the end, you can produce requirements. By the way, that's off topic. One of the problems with junior project managers is that they get shocked when there are no requirements. You come to customer, to project, and there are no requirements. And they say, oh, if there are no requirements, there is no project. No, that's wrong. You as a project manager sit with your client, brainstorm, help to create requirements, and voila, you have requirements and you have your project. So I don't say you have to have them written. I say you have to be able to at least write them. So if you can write them with your client, it's good for waterfall. It's a good idea to choose waterfall. Another point when you need to think that you need to evaluate when you think to do waterfall, that you do not expect major changes. You do not expect, hey, let's launch this first release, and after that, maybe do completely different project. Or let's launch, first demo, and after that first demo, just scrap all the rest of the plan. Another point, project duration is manageable. If you need to do something over 3-year period, for God's sake, even 1-year period, for God's sake, try not to use waterfall. Try at least to break that project into multiple waterfall projects if you have no other choice. But do not commit for crazy long plans. It's very hard to follow and plan. Obviously, you need to have necessary resources and tools. Again, if you depend on technology that is not released, do not pick waterfall. I had once a privilege to try to save project which was built on technology that was not released. So, you come to it, you try to launch it, and you understand the technology is not in release state. It has a big disclaimer, it's a draft, whatever it was beta version, and it doesn't run outside of development environment. So obviously you need to have all necessary things before you launch the project. And you do not need frequent releases. Waterfall and frequent releases do not usually go very hand in hand. If for whatever reason you need frequent releases, you should look at other methodologies. So look at this. If most of those ticks waterfall is a good idea. Okay. That's about waterfall. Now time for questions. Please write your questions in chat and we will be answering them. No questions?
Now we have no questions.
Sorry, Oksana?
For now we have no question in Q&A.
Okay, you can use chat, you can potentially use Q&A. Yes, you actually can use Q&A, probably it will be better. But that's funny. You were very active in chat, proposing your ideas, which was good. But that's weird that you have no questions at all. Give it a try, please. No luck? Let's go.
Looks like yes.
Okay, guys. If you will have questions about this part or about next part, just write them in Q&A as we go, and we will answer them and we will next time stop. Okay, so those were waterfall methodologies. Now let's speak about agile methodologies. So, where does this entire agile idea come from? In 90s, those waterfall projects were getting out of hand. They were getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that average enterprise project took years between idea and delivery. You can imagine that today you have an idea to build Airbnb or to build Facebook. And you try to do that classical waterfall approach. So you come to somebody and tell them, I want to build a social network. Let's define all the requirements. You try to imagine all the requirements, even so you never built social network before. And obviously your idea of what users want will be far away from what they actually want. And users will not know what they want until they will see your first version of your Facebook. But you try to write those requirements. And your software developer tells you, hey, come back in 3 years to get your Facebook. Now you have to have funding for 3 years. And in 3 years, God knows what you get. How will users use it? Will they use it? Will they pay, will they pay for itself? Those are tough questions that you have no idea whether that will happen or not. And so in 90s, and in some cases even before, people were thinking, how should we do projects better? How should we not follow classical waterfall, but improve classical waterfall? And there were different spins and twists to waterfall and some methodologies that even didn't look like waterfall. Then, by the way, one more story about before then, and then people invented agile, but before then. So FBI, they have, Federal Bureau of Investigation, US. They have a lot of documents. They have those cases that they investigate. They have suspect files, God knows what else. They wanted to automatize their database. They wanted to store everything in the single searchable, linkable, and whatnot place. That system was called that future system was called virtual case file. It was planned to be done via waterfall. There are some conflicting numbers, but these are numbers that I Googled. So in 2001, it was estimated that using waterfall virtual case file will cost $170 million and will be delivered. Around 2005, they already spent 600 million. Just imagine this number. And it was far from being delivered. Okay, and by the way, why it was this way? Because it's the FBI, it's a huge organization. In 5 years, a lot of people changed. New people came, new heads of departments came. There are different departments. Even if people didn't change, they had conflicting needs. One department wants A, another department wants B, and so on. So you have all this mess of constantly changing people and requirements, which didn't help to deliver. So in 2006, they said, okay, screw it. Now we know what needs to be done. Let's start anew. We will do that for 300 million. That new system was called Sentinel. In 2010, around 2010, they overspent. It was 415 million. And that Sentinel was still not delivered. And it was projected to cost 350 million more. But believe me, it would cost much more. Because any figure in such case, when you're already late and you try to estimate, and that new estimate is that big, it's inaccurate. There will be more spending there. So when FBI saw this projection, they said, okay, you know what? Doesn't seem to work. Let's try it. This all waterfall scene doesn't seem to work. Let's try something else. And they adopted Agile. And with Agile approach, surprisingly, they delivered. They just spent 40 million more and actually delivered Sentinel in 2012. So Agile showed itself as a valuable methodology to deliver such complex, changing and demanding projects. Now, what is Agile, will you ask me? That's what we will discuss now. Yeah, I see we got one question. We will answer it when we will stop after this section. And feel free to add more questions, guys. Okay, so what is Agile? In 2001, a group of people gathered together on some resort in a hotel. Those were not random people. Those were famous authors that were writing books on project management, software developers, speakers. So people who were already spending time trying to invent better project management methodologies. So they were not, again, not random people, and they had their methodologies, at least part of them. So they gathered in this hotel, and they tried to envision this future bright way to develop projects. Since they had different ideas and already had different methodologies, which were not 100% compatible, they came with a brilliant idea. They created manifesto. It's like constitution. They said, okay, you know what? There will be 4 principles in our manifesto. There will be 4 sentences, 4 parts in our manifesto that will, if your methodology fits in those 4 points, you are Agile. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the methodologies in Agile are the same. It's just as long as your methodology fits in this manifesto, you are Agile. So what are 4 points of manifesto? And by the way, can you see my pointer when I am moving it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because it's important. I sometimes can be, gesturing to something or moving pointer in some other tools and cases. And if you don't see it, it's, and I think you see it, it's quite weird. So the first one, they said individuals and interactions over processes and tools. What does it mean? It means that people are much more important than your defined processes. If you have right people, it's much better than if you have right process. You know, there is a phrase, if I remember it correctly, that culture is strategy for dinner or something like that. So you have right people, you have right attitude of those people. It's much more important than having the right process. It doesn't say instead, it says over. So it's more important to have right people than right process. It doesn't mean that you don't need process at all. It will be a mess. It's just picking between what you can do, keep writing very detailed process, like in McDonald's, I don't know, step here, step there, fry for 3 seconds, or you pick a right people for, and McDonald's is not a project. When you build a McDonald's, it's a project. When you work in McDonald's, remember, it's not a project. So I don't want to belittle work in McDonald's. It's a complicated and very nicely organized work. It's just not a project. So when you want to do a project, you cannot do that in the McDonald's way. You have to have, you better choose proper individuals and proper people. Second point of manifesto is working software over comprehensive documentation. So again, working software better than perfect. It's a joke. Now about this one, that it's better to focus to deliver something that works than try to write everything down, have perfectly documented use cases, have perfectly documented user guide. It's much more important for software to actually work. The third point, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Again, not instead, over. So you working with your customer is much more important. Imagine you do software and you agreed, I don't know, deliver a software for $100,000. And customer comes to you and wants to change something in that software. Natural reaction of a lot of people is to say, oh, you know what? Tough luck. We already agreed with you. We will not make this change because it was not in original requirements. Instead of that, Agile tells you, okay, try to adapt. Try to find a way to adapt. You have a contract? Okay, try to change it. First think how to adapt to what customer needs, and then think how to make that legally correct. Do write a change to your contract. Do negotiate that contract, but at least you will respond to change. You will show customers that you want to do something, and it's very easy. If you have a project for $100,000 and customer wants to change something, you do not need to make that change for free. I always tell that a good example of IT project management is to imagine that you renovate your flat or your house. Imagine that you hired construction crew to renovate your house, and how you will interact with them the same way our clients interact with us. When you agreed that all the house walls have to be white inside, and then you come later when they are painted and say, hey, now make them green. Or when, for example, paint is bought already, now make them green. You do not expect that it will be done for free. Your workers will tell you, okay, we need to buy a new paint, or okay, we need to repaint. And by the way, you need to pay for the first white paint because we spent effort on that. So it's like common sense. The same thing with the project. It's a common sense that you do not need to do stuff for free. If customer wants to change something and doesn't have more money, agree what to remove other of undone work, unfinished work, not done work. So remove other part, but include what customer wants. And what I already described is pretty much covers last 2 points. So customer collaboration over contract negotiation and responding to change over following a plan. So listen to your customer, listen to end users, adapt to what they do. There is a story that I like to tell. That's a real story. So there was a customer, there was a business who needed to make a software. That businessman went to company A, asked them to develop a project. That project was developed waterfall way. 12 months later, all the budget was spent, project delivered, project formally matched requirements, but was unusable, not working. Just requirements were, captured poorly, and what was delivered didn't match what that businessman needed, but matched requirements. So he paid for everything and was not able to use software. He went to company B and told them this story. And company B was practicing agile already. And he told them this story that, those guys, they wasted 12 months of my budget to not deliver me what I need, to deliver me what I don't need. To which agile guys responded, hey, we could waste 1 month of your budget to deliver you what you don't need. The moral of the story, yes, they would also screw the first month in agile way. But in agile way, since interactions, customer collaboration, responding to change are very important, and we'll discuss more about what is agile. But since we follow these principles, we deliver often. So otherwise, you will not have customer collaboration and responding to change. So since agile guys were aiming to deliver every month, they would also deliver after the first month and deliver something wrong, because you remember initial requirements were wrong. But customer would look like, see, oh my God, you are not doing what I need. You are doing something completely else. He will lose 1/12 of his project budget, but he will have 11/12 of the budget to fix that mess. So agile gives you chance to adapt much better, much quicker. That's the beauty of agile. And one more thing that people tend to don't understand or something like that. Here on the right, agile, you remember, it's a constitution. Agile manifesto is a constitution. Whatever methodology fits under that constitution is agile. It doesn't mean that all agile methodologies are the same. There are very different methodologies that focus on different aspects. So you can see different agile methodologies. That's one point to remember. And second point, that's very cool to take more than one agile methodology and mix. Like we will talk later about Scrum. And Scrum is a how do you deliver project. And then you take, for example, XP, extreme programming. And from there you take some things that you, by the way, guys maybe heard of, like pair programming, like continuous integration, automated testing. So you take different agile methodologies, mix them, and get results that you need. So you take out of all of that, mix, get a result. Okay, so let's first do questions here. So we have one question. How do you see the future of waterfall and agile project management model being replaced by new approaches? I'd also be interested in statistical favorite methodologies within project management. Okay, look, how do I see agile and waterfall replaced? I don't see a contender at the moment. I bet sooner or later somebody will invent something more, probably something radically different. But until then, it all revolves around agile or waterfall. And we will be talking later. They are all flavors of the same. So there are no, in principle, different methodology. You always think, then do. It's just how you think, how you respond to change, how often you deliver. That's the thing that changes. Now, statistically favorite methodology, that's I usually get this question. I get it quite often. And I tell you the following way. There are silver bullets in software development. There are silver bullets, and you know them, like task trackers, where you write tasks and bugs, like Jira. When I started to be a software developer, I still remember my first manager asking people, hey, why can't we use Google Docs for our testers to write bugs? Why do we need task tracker? Even so, task trackers were already around. But the moment somebody tries task trackers, they understand, hey, cool thing, we gotta use it. Nobody says anymore, like, why do we need task trackers or bug trackers? So that's a silver bullet, everybody uses it. There are other silver bullets, like continuous integration, proper IDEs, high-level development languages, AI, that is coming now as a helper tool. So there are silver bullets. But since we have this discussion, it means that there are no silver bullets in management. If it was, everybody would use it. Some cases require one methodology, some cases require other methodology. Here is a question to you, to wake you up. How do you think? Since Agile is this cool and adaptive methodology and so on, is there still place for waterfall? Is there still, oh, by the way, let me ask you this question on the next slide. So when do we use Agile? Based on what we discussed, it's a good idea to use Agile when requirements are vague, not defined. So you come to your customer and customer says, yeah, we need system that will make creating contracts easier, or even better, we are renting out cars and we want to improve this process. We have software, we want to improve our software. We don't know how. So you don't have requirements. You have a requirement to develop requirements. And it's not just ask and write them down. It's actually find out what needs to be done and experiment and try it and propose it to users and fail and learn from it. So when requirements are not clear and cannot be made clear, it's a good chance to use Agile. When there is a benefit in frequent releases, you have audience who will consume frequent releases, which is not always. I was working for a customer who was making video conferencing software, like the ones we are using. And there was this engineering push from VP of engineering, let's release every 2 weeks, let's release very often. And when we started to ask, why do you need this? There was no answer. We spoke to product managers and they told us that customers do not want, it's an enterprise customers, like GlobalLogic is buying Zoom for entire GlobalLogic. Enterprise customers do not want software to be updated every 2 weeks. Each new release of servers like cloud software needs to be verified, especially if it's installed on GlobalLogic premises, not in the cloud, but in GlobalLogic cloud. Every new release needs to be tested, vetted, made sure it doesn't break anything, made sure it's secure. So our customers actively didn't want frequent releases. They wanted to get a stable release once a half year. So that was not a place to do frequent releases. I don't say it's not a place for Agile, but I say there was no value in frequent releases to our end customers. And you have a source of feedback. So you have somebody to give you feedback about your frequent releases. If you have those things, it's a good case to use Agile. Now, let's ask my question. I see a lot of yes in chat, but I want more than yes. Where will you use waterfall? If yes, then where will you use waterfall? Can you tell like real life industries, examples, use cases where you think waterfall is a good fit? New product implementation from Mikuláš. Mikuláš, can you please, in automotive? Yes, in automotive, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. We actually do automotive projects and it's very rigorous testing process. You cannot allow yourself, there was once I watched, while you write it, once I watched on the YouTube entire story how one software development company failed to deliver proper infotainment system, entertainment information system for big car brands. And they didn't use this fancy new system, but had to use old system in their cars. And then by coincidence, same week, I saw a review of that car on YouTube. And one of the points was, oh my gosh, infotainment system is so lame. So yes, because people failed with implementation of infotainment system for their cars, they had bad reviews for those cars. Okay, what else do we have here? Waterfall in serial production. Serial production is not project. Please remember, there is no project management in production. You can build production plant by waterfall, but you do not operate it by waterfall. Mobile app, depends what mobile app. Rocket component software. By the way, a friend of a friend works for SpaceX. They use Agile software. They write Agiles. They do software. They do software for SpaceX in Agile manner. And if you watch it, if you are interested, they now build spaceship using Agile method. They just welded together some steel, pressurized it, let it blow. Okay, welded another pieces together, launched them by a few meters up. It crashed. Oh, okay, whatever. Welded another. So they actually built the spaceship, to my amazement, using Agile, using frequent releases, fails, iterations. For products that have very high security requirements and sort of documentation, yes, you offer good ideas. One of the industries where waterfall lands, besides even better than in automotive, it's healthcare. If you do devices that can kill people, you cannot use Agile. And there are a wide host of the medical devices that can kill or harm people. You definitely want to be safe there. You go through this rigorous process of having all the requirements, developing, testing it, and releasing it very rarely, maybe once a few years. Even so, you can probably be working on few versions in parallel, but every version is released very rarely because of cost of mistake. Nobody wants to harm humans. Good. Any more questions? Guys, you are very passive. I don't know. Did I put you to sleep? Wake up. That's the most passive audience that I had in quite a while. Are you celebrating something? What about spiral and incremental methodologies? What do you think about them comparing to waterfall and agile? Do you consider them as independent methodologies? Okay, it's a very good question. Look, semantics, it's a question partially about semantics of where I would say that spiral methodology is waterfall and incremental methodology is agile. And that's okay that somebody will have another opinion. By the way, I had here a slide with spiral methodology. So let me show it to everybody, but I hid it in order not to overwhelm people. Skip it, unskip it, and slideshow. So this slide is in my waterfall slides. Oh, sorry, it's not spiral, it's V model. Okay, I don't have a spiral. So let's speak few words about different flavors of methodologies, including waterfall methodologies. So there are many different waterfall methodologies, but they all tend to be having same sequential steps. Like, for example, the model on the right here is called V model, and it is used in automotive. It says that not only steps go one by one, we go to requirements, to design, to the detailed design, to coding, and then blah, blah, blah up. But also each step connects horizontally. When we do requirement specification, we write acceptance test. When we write acceptance tests, not do acceptance tests, but write acceptance tests. When we do system design, we write system tests. When we do model design, we do modular integration. And when we code, we do unit testing. And then, so we go down and create documentation by which we will then go up. That's V model. But that's again waterfall. You go from one step and then up. It's just sequence. Spiral, I don't have diagram here, but it's similar. You go through the same stages in a spiraling manner. Spiral methodology was an idea how to fix waterfall. it was step in direction of agile. So you can imagine that you go through all same 4 stages all the time. You like plan, implement, demo, release first demo. Then you plan, implement, you do second demo. Then you like do few demos, and through demos and iterative improvement, you come to the result. That was still waterfall, just closer to agile, in my opinion. Okay, let's get back to where we were. And let's see, do we have more questions? Time management is same both the models, agile and waterfall. Basically, no. If I understand the question correctly, whether time management is the same. We will talk about agile methodologies on the next slide, like example of agile methodology. But agile has very different perception of time. Agile thinks it's much smaller iterations. Agile thinks, okay, have to deliver often. Maybe agile doesn't see. So in short term, agile much quicker and much sharper. It always knows how to deliver next bit to customers. In a big picture, agile may have no idea about when end goal will be achieved. In waterfall, you know, okay, build a system for a car. It will, you estimate it, plan it, it will take 1.5 years. You will get release in final release in 1.5 years. In agile, when you build Airbnb using agile, you have no idea where you will end, like basically never, until you have funding, until your project is successful. You will be just doing these small releases and moving forward. So one more time, agile knows much more about short term and much less about when the end goal will be achieved. So it can be obviously planned with a good project management. Okay, any other questions here? Good, let's move forward. And by the way, as I said, feel free to add more questions in the chat, we'll be answering them. Okay, so we will speak about the most popular agile methodology called Scrum. And after that, hopefully, if you'll have time, we will also speak about second most popular called Kanban. Okay, let's go. So the first one called Scrum. And Scrum is very simple. You can Google it. It's you can Google free PDF from authors of Scrum called Scrum Guide. It's like 10 pages, maybe 20 pages PDF. Yeah, I will answer that. I see the question. I will answer that when we will stop next time. So you can Google it, and it consists of 3 roles and 4 rituals, 4 processes. They are called rituals in Scrum. Let's go. So 3 roles. That's again, don't be surprised if you didn't see this before. That's how authors of the Scrum defined it. You can have a different idea about roles in your team. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. So there are just 3 roles per definition of Scrum. One of them is delivery team. Yeah, sounds funny. Role team, but we have what we have. So your team is one role. Idea, description of this team, the team should be self-sufficient fully. If your team needs to, obviously, if you do software, your team needs to be able to develop. Your team needs to be able to test. If you need to create designs, your team needs to be able to create designs. Now everything is deployed somewhere in the cloud. Your team needs to be able to deploy to the cloud. Maybe you will use some high-level instruments, whatever, but your team has to be self-sufficient internally. Yes, if you're working for a big company, maybe you will not have access to production environment of your company. Maybe some system admins will have, but still you will have to be able to do everything else. To deploy to testing environment, to develop test, deploy to testing environment, demonstrate everything that you need, your team should know. So first role, team. Second role, Scrum Master. Scrum Master, you can think about him or her as a coach in sport or priest. That's the 2 analogies that I always have in my head. One coach, he coaches everybody, he teaches everybody, he or she, the Scrum Master, teaches everybody what needs to be, how we need to implement Scrum. And why I say priest? Because that person has to be passionate. That person has to push everybody, like, you know, religious way. Say, no, you cannot decide to release later. We agreed that we release every 2 weeks. No, you cannot do X or you should do Y. So that person should be coaching and pushing everybody just to follow agreed process. And third role is called product owner. So product owner is a person who tells you what needs to be implemented. And ideal is that product owner should be from, broadly speaking, client side, user side. If you develop internal software, that should be representative of your users. If you develop software for hire, you work for other company, then that company may give you somebody like product owner, but that person should be able to represent end users, know what end users do, know what end users need, and help to transfer those requirements to you. Ideally, transfer them in detailed, nicely written format that you just take and implement, but at least in the format. But at least it's not possible in actual world. Usually, product managers are busy, but at least you will have a person that can answer questions on behalf of your users. That you will not need to guess, what do my users need? Do they like it or not? You talk to product owner, and product owner tells you and makes decision what will be implemented next. So that's it, just those 3 roles. For example, you can see that there is no project manager explicitly here. It leads to a lot of debate, or at least used to lead to debate. So are project managers obsolete? Make your own decision. This methodology is from 2001, now it's 2023, project managers are still around. So obviously this methodology empowers team to be independent and encourages team to be independent. But you can still have project manager in your team in the role that was called delivery team, or maybe not have it. Up to you. So 3 roles: team, Scrum Master, and product owner. Okay, any questions up to this moment? And I'll answer the ones that we have here. So Agile is more for projects with no strict constraint or resources. I would not say so. I would say, look, you can have strict constraints. You work for startup and startup has just $100,000 altogether. It's very strict constraint. You can have other constraints. It's just that Agile is for, and by the way, you can deliver any project in Agile way. You can deliver big and complex projects in Agile way. So that project will obviously have cost limit. And by having cost limit, it will limit what resources can you have. It can have time limit. You know that you have $1 million and 1 year to deliver final product, but your customer cannot produce you requirements. So you say, okay, you know what? By our average rate, $1 million is, just making it up, 1,000 engineers. Okay, so we will have 1,000 or 10 engineers, whatever, for a year. And we will figure as we go who are those engineers. So we start with 5 engineers, high-level architects who plan, then they onboard more people, and as we move, we see and adapt, and we have limit of time, we have limit of cost, but we still plan to adapt as we move forward. Here, Agile will be very good for you. Okay. Any other questions about Agile, Waterfall, or roles in Agile, in Scrum in particular? Okay. Let's go further. So next, we covered 3 roles from Scrum. Now we cover Scrum processes, or as Scrum calls them, rituals. 4 rituals. So this is, don't be shocked by this. This seems complex, but it's not that complex. So I'll explain each of those. Don't you worry. So first, everything starts over here on the left in so-called product backlog. It's just a log of all the ideas that we have for our product, small and large. Appeared on the beginning, came up yesterday. It can have something like implement landing page, and it can have, oh my God, integrate with 10 most popular CRMs. So, or 10 most popular social networks. So it can be like really huge things in there. That's okay. It's just a storage room for ideas. That's a product backlog. So we come to our first ritual. The first ritual is called sprint planning. Oh, and let's speak few words. What is sprint? So in Scrum, there is this idea that we do small iterations. They are called sprints or iterations. Sprint is just, you run from, you run 100 meters, for example, it's a sprint. That's why it's sprint. You run a short distance, you run your 30 days or less. And this sprint is a project in itself. It has planning, implementation, testing, and delivery. So each sprint is like a mini project. So first step, you plan your sprint. You take these unrefined ideas from your backlog, you involve your product owner, you remember person that represents your users. You rank ideas in the backlog, you find which are the most important, you split them into manageable parts. Instead of these big blocks, you get like tiny manageable parts. If idea to implement next 10 social networks is the top one in backlog, you say, okay, let's split this into 10 ideas per social network, and then let's maybe split integration with Facebook into smaller ideas. So we need to be able to log in with Facebook, that's the one idea. Then we need to be able to post back to Facebook, that's the second idea. Maybe we need to pull in some updates from Facebook in our applications, that's the third. So you split, dice it until you have very defined ideas. You don't need to define everything. You can have million more ideas in the backlog. You just pick top, define them well. That's called sprint planning. You plan and you take them as many as you need for 30 days of development, testing, and delivery. So not 30 days of development, but 30 days of everything. You know how much you need, you know your team size, you know previous iterations, you planned your sprint. That's the first ritual. Sprint planning happens before we start our 30-day sprint. Then the next ritual, we started our 30-day sprint. Inside of sprint, we have every day, once a day, we have a ritual called daily scrum. So we gather together, we talk. It's a small meeting, so it's ideally 15 minutes meeting. All team gathers, and everybody should just say 3 things. What did I do since last meeting like this? What do I plan to do till next meeting like this? And do I have any problems? This unbelievably good thing to synchronize teams. Even if you do not do Scrum, but you do a project, I encourage you to do daily Scrums or daily stand-ups, they are usually called. And by stand-up, it's better to stand during them. If, now everybody works remotely, but in office times, it was better to stand during them. It encourages people to not talk too much. And the idea is not talk too much. You just say 3 simple things. What I did, everybody catches up what everybody does. What do I plan to do? So everybody has a chance to say, no, you don't need to do that because it's implemented, because it's obsolete. And do I have problems? And then good project manager or good leader of the team will say, okay, you have these problems. We will discuss them after the meeting. You don't need one of the problems that happens. Like everybody, 10 people are sitting and listening to your team lead, resolving problem with your team member, and you spend half of hour listening to that problem on this daily meeting. So you just wasted 10 people, half hour, 5 man hours. You almost killed a man day listening to that problem. Don't do that. Note problems, discuss them outside of this daily sync. So second ritual, daily sync, daily scrum, daily stand-up. It's all the same. Third ritual, called sprint review. So we ran our sprint. We came with the results. We want to demonstrate, you remember, we do release often. even if we don't release to end users every sprint, we show it internally to product owner and so on. We want to get our feedback. So, okay, we show this sprint results, we demo them. Ideally, they are demoed by developers, which gives developers, there are a lot of introverts, but those developers get spot in the spotlight, they show what they did, they feel the pride in the end for what they did. Others appreciate that work, so we show what we did. Okay, we got a question, and let me show the fourth ritual and then go to that question. So third ritual, sprint review, sprint demo also called. And the fourth ritual is called sprint retrospective. That's a separate meeting where we go to learn, to reflect, to have, to think how this sprint went. There are usually the following questions. What went well? What needs to be improved next time? So sometimes people, they are afraid to be critical. Sometimes people are afraid to critically say something. So we don't need to say what went wrong. We may say what we may do differently. But those things have to be voiced. Somebody in IT said that we do not learn on our mistakes. We also do not learn on our successes. So first question, what we did right, is also very important. We ask ourselves, okay, what was cool this sprint? Did product owner have a time to sit with us every day because he was happened to be in the office or in our room? Did we involve IT and they helped to solve problem quicker than all previous sprints? So you ask ourselves, what was done well, to learn from that well and apply to next sprints? And you ask yourself, what needs to be done differently? From that, we also learn what to improve. And from that, we adapt our entire process. One of the mistakes that people do, they want to implement Agile by the book. Oh, okay, it says ideal sprint is 2 weeks. We should do sprints every 2 weeks. Oh, it says X. Oh my God, no. You do this retrospective. You decide what you need to improve in your process. You improve that. Usually teams that practice Scrum keep improving process at least during first year. At least, maybe more. They keep thinking, adapting, inventing new approaches. And each next iteration, each next sprint will be better. So do this. So we have 4 rituals. You remember, we planned a sprint. We launched the sprint. We did a daily stand-up, daily Scrum. We developed everything. We demonstrated it in sprint review. And after that, we did a sprint retrospective. So 4 rituals of Scrum. Okay, let's read the question. Our manager made a comment about Scrum being useful only with not mature teams. In your opinion, this methodology applies to mature teams? Yes, in my opinion, this methodology applies to mature teams much better than to immature teams. Immature team with you remember Agile Manifesto, individuals in interaction over processes and tools. Immature team may be probably better with waterfall. Because if you have no experience, you better follow a rigid process. In order to follow a flexible process, you need to be mature. Obviously, you can practice Scrum with all maturity levels. But if you are mature, Scrum is even better. We delivered projects that had a deadline, that had a final release in 1.5 years, that involved about 30 plus engineers, unbelievable amount of dependencies, unbelievable amount of change. We delivered them using Scrum. And, I cannot tell you cost of a project, but it was very expensive. And I cannot tell you, sadly, because it's under NDA, name of the customer, but that was huge companies that you all know about. So, and that all was delivered using Scrum. And that's just one latest example. We used Scrum countless times and we have very good people. So yeah, Scrum is very useful for all maturity levels, including mature teams. If anything, do not pick methodology based on maturity of the team. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, let's move forward. Kanban. It's another agile methodology. You remember we had this umbrella under which different agile methodologies were, and I told you, as long as your methodology matches to manifesto, your methodology is agile. So that's another different from Scrum agile methodology. It's called Kanban. It comes from improvements of conveyors of Toyota. So all those Japanese ideas of how to improve manufacturing, how to improve their manufacturing, they are quite good. And some Western managers who worked for Toyota and learned from it, they then formalized their skills and knowledge and created Kanban. So Kanban has rather different idea to Scrum. Kanban has no iterations at all. It says, okay, we have all our needs. In classical Kanban, we write them on sticker notes and stick them to the board, but it can be online tool, like a lot, or like almost every task tracker tool now has Kanban board because it's so popular. So we have all our ideas. They are in some status that can be called whatever, open, whatever, or in this case, it's called waiting. So we have, ignore next two columns for a sec. So we have all the ideas in waiting. Then we create next columns or statuses. They are basically statuses, but it's nice to imagine them as columns. There can be more columns. We can have column development, then unit testing. I'm just making it up. Just development, unit testing, manual testing, deployment to staging, verification, complete. Key ideas. Everything that we need to be done comes to first column. Everything that is in the last column is, let's say this way, as done as possible. So ideally deployed to production. It's not just, oh, development complete, forget about it. No, we want to make sure that that thing got to our user. And then you have some amount of columns in between. And there are very simple rules. So you take one item and your key idea is to deliver that one item to the final status as fast as you can. So you optimize one item getting through conveyor. Same as with any manufacturing. You know, you manufacture cars, you want every car to get to the end as soon as possible. There is absolutely no value for cars sit on conveyor. There is absolutely no value for tasks to sit in progress. So every task should get as fast as possible to the last step. One of the things that tend to happen with teams and with conveyors, because of some bottleneck, tickets tend to stick in the middle. You took a ticket, you started to develop it, you understand that you need your colleague John to help you, but John is busy, you abandon ticket in progress and you go and pick up another ticket and move it to in progress and start working on it. Kanban punishes for that. In Kanban, you set limit per column. For example, if you have 4 team members, it's a good idea to say that in progress can be no more than 4 tickets. Now, you see, there are 4 tickets. I cannot abandon this ticket here. If I cannot move this ticket, I have just few choices. And by the way, what choices do I have? If this website user story 1, I cannot move because I am waiting for John, who is working on this green ticket. What choices do I have? So I need John. I cannot do without him. He is busy, and I cannot have more than 4 tickets in progress. What options do I have? Let's use chat. Too complicated? Take other ticket. Yeah, but I cannot take other ticket from waiting. So which other ticket should I take? You remember there is a limit of 4 tickets per column in progress. Yes, take other in progress tickets. That's a good idea. If I cannot move my ticket further, I have to go and help somebody else. Just find another colleague whom I can help to push their ticket out of in progress. The best candidate to help will be actually John. Go and help him with his ticket. Move the ticket to complete, then take care of my tickets, and then we both can take next tickets. So again, you see this optimization of conveyor. We encourage users to move tickets to the end as quick as they can. Here is Kanban for you. Does this match Agile Manifesto? Individuals interactions over processes and tools. Yes. Responding to change. Yes. We pick the most important tickets. Does this deliver often to get feedback often? Yes. Tickets are delivered as quick as we can. So you have all the principles of Agile, but in completely different format. And remember what I said when we discussed Manifesto. Mix and match works perfectly. So you can take Scrum and have all the Scrum, or for example, you can take Kanban and have Kanban in your team, but use stand-ups from Scrum. Or you can have Scrum and use Kanban board in your Scrum. So it's good to mix. It's not punishable, it's actually encouraged. Okay. So that was Kanban. Here I want to recap Agile versus Waterfall. So let's recap. And if you have any questions, ask them in chat. And by the way, we are close to completion. After this slide, we will have probably one more slide and we will be done. And we will be, again, open for any more questions. So, comparison between Waterfall and Agile. Scope, requirements. We call what needs to be done as scope. So requirements. For Waterfall, you pick Waterfall if requirements are fixed. You pick Agile if requirements are expected to be changing. Timeline. Usually, Waterfall is good where a fixed timeline is necessary. Agile is good where we need to adapt to changes. It doesn't mean you cannot do fixed timeline with Agile. You can. I described that we did that for 1.5 years project. We delivered it using iterations, we using Scrum. But still, if you have choice and you have need to be flexible in terms of timeline, do not choose Waterfall. Budget, again, Agile more lends itself to flexible budget, but it's questionable. You can, as everywhere, you can adapt both ways to where you need. Just Agile is better where budget is flexible. Client involvement. Usually in case of Waterfall, you will not involve your client much. You will verify requirements. You will invite customer maybe to watch some demos, which will be not that often. And customer client will be shown final version. Yes, you may adapt, you may do often demos. And by the way, if you do Waterfall, I encourage to do often demos. People are very afraid of demos for whatever reason. Oh my gosh, we will show demo and client will tell that we are doing wrong thing. And what will we do? You cannot be further away from truth. Do often demos, even in Waterfall. First, especially if you do that for hire, you do that for somebody else, or you do that internally, but you have a strict high-level management. You show your product in the middle of implementation. Your clients or your bosses see what you already did. they start to adapt. They now understand that their wild dreams, whatever they imagined, is not gonna happen. This product will look like this. So partially, they start to adapt to what you do, and then they give you feedback about critical points, and you adapt it. Usually changes after demos that you need to make on your side are not that significant, but impact on final delivery is immeasurable. Customers learned, or your clients, your bosses learned to accepted internally what you do, and you adapted something. So they see that you can adapt to what they need. Result is very positive with frequent demos. So frequent demos in waterfall are good, but agile tends to be better where client needs to be involved and can be involved like constantly. If your client can review your product owner can review your result every 2 weeks, cool. That's a good point to do agile there. And flexibility in waterfall, much better when each phase can and needs to be fully completed because it's automotive, healthcare, and whatnot. And agile good where you by design want to be adaptable, where you do some startups and so on. Okay, so that's a recap. Now we are open to any questions about waterfall or agile. We are done with both approaches, and I will show one more slide, but let's start with any questions up to this moment.
We haven't question yet.
Okay, so let me show that slide, and in the meantime, you can think about your questions and just write them down, please. So one of the questions that was brought even today up is another way besides waterfall and agile. Now, that's all just words. You can call spiral methodology an agile, or you can call it waterfall. You can call something agile, waterfall, or third way. It doesn't change much. I'll just offer you one of the interpretations. So first, we can say that third way is do hybrid methodologies, when we mix and match completely different, like waterfall plus agile. Yeah, maybe it's a third way. Another third way methodology is kind of no methodology. It's called code and fix. And to my surprise, I saw projects run like this and companies run like this. So it's not even Kanban. You have no structure whatsoever. You find a problem, you fix it. We used to have a client who was trying to run project in this way. And since there was no structure from his side, he just was throwing at him problems. And so many problems he designated as critical in order to somehow prioritize them, that he had to come with one more status on top of critical. And he invented status called crazy critical. So you can imagine. So just, throw problems at your team and they will be fixing them as much capacity as they have. Is this a good way? No. Do people do that? Yes. Okay, we got a question. Hooray! Not everybody are sleeping. It is possible to jump at some point from waterfall to agile, e.g. after some demo, client want to change some things, so we propose to change methodology. Short answer, yes, of course. You can say, okay, you know what? Waterfall doesn't work for us. Let's do agile. But, remember, clauses attached. If you was doing that under waterfall, you probably have a contract. You definitely have a contract, but you probably have a contract that describes something waterfall-like-ish. You have fixed budget, you have scope in contract. So don't just forget to raise a change request to that contract. And that's by the way, that happens in a lot of cases in service industry. You start with a waterfall-like, come prove yourself. I was once going through GlobalLogic office, and I saw a huge medical device, huge, much bigger, like fridge size, And I asked, what's the story of this device? And I was told the following: that client wanted to, it's a new client, it was new client for GlobalLogic. They never worked with us. They wanted to test us. So they just gave us this device and said, you know what, this device reboots randomly every few hours, which is not supposed to happen. Go figure. And GlobalLogic figured. So basically, we got a waterfall project to fix not that particular device, obviously that series of devices, but we got a device and we needed to fix that series of devices. It was a waterfall project. Then you demonstrate yourself and you say, you know what, my dear customer, here, I proved myself. Now, look, your needs will be much better served in agile manner. So we give you a Scrum team of 10 people, and you explain why, because you change requirements and so on, and it has absolutely no point in us each time rewrite our contract. So you explain why, you explain what is the monetary value of that. You say, look, we will not be wasting hours of your and our time to replan half of year project if you need to change it every week. You don't just tell we want to change because we want to change. You hopefully find arguments how you save his money. And with that, you sell idea to change methodology and maybe change your contract. You read your contract and then change. But you remember, responding to change is more important than following a contract and then everything else. So you first agree in principle and then you go and change contract. Okay, so that's one. If I don't have any IT experience, where should I start to become a project manager? Look, this tough question. I get it from time to time. There are two ways. One mainstream way, go and become not project manager. First, find job that just drives you in IT. If you can, if you are interested, not even can, everybody can learn almost everything. Every one of us can be nuclear scientist, and every one of us can be a CEO. It's just a question of time to learn and resources to learn. Is somebody willing to give you that first experience? So find what drives you and who will be willing to give you that first experience. If you want to be developer, it's a good way to start. You start as developer, you gain few years of experience, you constantly show up yourself, you talk to your manager saying, I want to lead other people, give me juniors to lead them, then give me team to lead. And from there, you get an actual management experience. And it absolutely does not matter what your title says, as long as you have practical experience leading people. From there, you go to your management. If you don't want to be a developer, testers or designers are also, UX, UI designers are also very good tracks to become manager, because especially testers, they tend to be more extrovert. It just happens that people who are attracted to be a tester, they are more extrovert in average. They tend to work with people more, because as a tester, you talk to customers more, you talk to clients, the users more, you talk to developers more. So you show your extroverting skills. A lot of testers become then managers. There are companies that basically promote testers to managers. So that's like way through other profession in IT. Another way, go and find managerial experience outside of IT. Start your startup, work in some management role outside of IT, volunteer. That's tough way, I be honest. That's tougher way, because you are not in IT, you are not gaining IT experience, and somebody will have to make a leap of faith to hire, leap of belief, like in Assassin's Creed when he jumps off towers. Leap of faith to hire you as an IT project manager. We used to do that rarely. Like we had a guy who was VP in non-profit organization, and we hired him as a trainee project manager, but it was tough for us too. He didn't know about IT anything. He just knew about managing people. And main part of management is in IT, arguably, is there are two parts, how to deal with people and how to deal with IT. So IT knowledge is almost irreplaceable. So one more time, go find experience outside of IT, and from there come as a manager. Go find managerial experience outside of IT, and from there come as a manager to IT. I would argue that going through non-managerial IT profession is better. Okay.
And Oleg, we have one comment about your previous story about medical devices in chat. Is it normal? How often do you have tasks like this?
No, look, depending what we say this. So I have the same story from other companies that I worked for. It was like long time ago, like 90s. And in Ukraine in 90s, IT was very different than now. You know, there was not so much good English. There was not so much experience dealing with customers. And somehow happened that two bright engineers from that company went to Disney. They thought they are invited to participate in some project, you know, in some, let's say, how to say it, to present themselves as a potential partner to Disney. They just misunderstood it. They came, Disney looked, people looked at them and said, you know what, you didn't need to come. But if you came, there is a right that we cannot fix. Again, go figure. And that company figured out how to fix that old right, rewrote software for it, and from there landed themselves huge cooperation with Disney. So it sometimes happens like this, like, you know, in fairy tales. Usually it happens in more blunt way. You come to customer, you say, I am this and this. Usually you have to show that you have experience in this particular industry. And then customer gives you first something to prove yourself. So you very rarely land with cooperation for 300 people, very, very rarely. Usually you get first project, 10 people, you show yourself, maybe not in that dramatic way, but you get your first software to be developed, you develop it successfully, you show yourself as a reliable partner, you get more work. Most IT companies get most work as a repetitive work from the same customers. So as overall pattern, this is very widespread, as you know, like these cool stories to tell, not so often.